Right, hello everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, or perhaps good evening to any one of you who's watching. My name is Bernard. I'm the head of marketing and communications from Elder Elite, and today's session is a very special session because I will not be the only person who will be speaking. As you can see, joined beside me, we have a representative with the name of Laurent, who is joining in from Jasper Lodge. He is the Chief Marketing Officer. Laurent, just before we begin, maybe you can give us a bit of introduction, say hi to everybody, give a bit of a background about yourself, maybe?
Right. First of all, hi folks. Thank you for having me here, Bernard. It's been a pleasure to actually be on your show here to kind of talk about a little bit about what we do about the nursing industry in Malaysia overall. My name is Laurent, as mentioned by Bernard, from Jasper Lodge. We are one of the biggest chain of nursing homes in Malaysia, where we have 14 nursing homes all across the Malaysia states.
Right. So the largest nursing home chain, 14 is actually quite a commendable amount, I would say. I think you covered quite a prospective market that we have in Malaysia. So I think you are probably one of the best person for us to speak to when we talk about senior care. So without wasting too much time, I was thinking we could just dive right into today's topic. So since we were on the topic of senior care, right, I was thinking, there's been a lot of different information. Whenever we go on the internet, we see that different types of senior care. There are old folks home, there are nursing homes, companion care, so many of them. So can you just name us a few, and what are the different types that we have here in Malaysia in terms of senior care?
Right. In Malaysia itself, actually, we are still quite new in terms of providing different services to the elder care. But of course, now currently in Malaysia, there's several ones that definitely most of y'all will know. It's probably like nursing homes, old folk homes, companion care, nursing care, and also kind of like briefly, there's also new concepts that's coming out like retirement villages as well. And also there actually been a couple of years back, actually also a new concept where we call a senior co-living kind of thing that happened. But unfortunately, that's something that never took off. So those are some of the different nursing, kind of like the elder care that you have in Malaysia currently. So in terms of just as you mentioned as well on the differences of each of them, it really all depends on the what kind of level of care is required for the seniors mentally or physically that decides which kind of services is much more appropriate for the consumers to send their elderlies over.
Right. I think when we mention about nursing homes and when we talk about old folks home, I think there's been a very huge misconception among people because people tend to associate nursing home to old folks home, right? They tend to think that they are both the same. But I do believe that they share, to a certain extent, maybe similar functions, but they are also very different in nature. Can you just walk us through very quickly, what are the differences in between a nursing home and an old folks home? Because I do think these two types are the most common ones that we have in Malaysia.
Right. I think you're really spot on. I think one of the things that a lot of people kind of get confused in terms of old folks home and nursing homes, right? And they're actually no wrong in a way that's a bit hard to actually differentiate them. So basically, when old folks home and nursing homes, right, they are very similar in a lot of aspects. Whereby usually people attend it as a place where elderly can come over to stay together and be taken care of, right? But then again, there are a lot of very important differences between them. Okay, most old folks homes are staffed with caregivers who are basically there to assist people with personal care needs, while nursing homes are more mainly staffed nurses. Okay, so and there's a big, huge difference there in terms of the staffs. So meaning to say for nursing homes, right, with the staffs which are more professionally trained to handle elderlies who are suffering from illnesses. And with with nursing home staffs, right, they are much more trained to actually recognize changes in the person's health and also be able to provide medical services accordingly. So if you compare both of them, right, nursing home is actually a much more better place for elderlies to have much more complicated medical conditions that you go to compared to an old folks home.
Right. Thank you very much, Lauren. I think from there, we'd actually see a very huge difference in terms of pattern, right? For old folks home, it's less of technical expertise. It's more of nursing care, more of caregiving, I would say. When it comes to nursing home, it's more the technical expertise which are involved. so to say, right? Because that's where you have professionally trained nurses to come in, and that is where they can actually spot, the patterns, the living patterns of the elderly, and see, whether if there's changes in behavior, that they can probably treat and also give professional advices, as well as to say treatment maybe. Now moving on to the next one, I was thinking that since we're on this topic, right, if I were to be a son or a daughter, right, with an elderly at home, and today I need to send this elderly maybe to senior care, right? How do I know, or what is the best type that would be suitable for this elderly? Like, what are the key factors that I should consider, or maybe the main points that I should think of before deciding on which type?
So there are actually several key things that you actually need to think about in terms of deciding which type of services that you want for your loved ones, right? So first of them definitely is location-wise, because as all the services that we mentioned, right, it's also a bit challenging whereby certain services are not available in certain locations, right? So definitely first thing is the location itself that you guys have to consider as well, where your elderly are, and where you tend to actually send him over to and what's not. That's one. Secondly is the health condition of your loved ones. It's very important as well. Because like I mentioned just now, right? If you feel that if your loved ones, your mom, your dad actually has very specific health conditions, right, that needs extra care, then you need to think about whether you want them to be sent to a nursing home or old folks home. Old folks home, in certain cases, the minor ones, health condition is still okay. But of course, if you want the best care for your elderly ones with medical conditions, definitely nursing homes is the best place to go, right? Secondly, as well, it's also in terms of your level of commitment in taking care of them. Okay, right. So if you look at home nursing, whereby you provide, whereby you have nurses to actually go over to your home to actually take care of elderly, or you actually have a live-in caregiver that actually go to your place, actually care for your loved ones, compared to having them put in either a nursing home or a old folks home, right? It goes to the level of commitment in taking care of them. So some people feel that they just need someone to probably take about a couple of hours to look and take care of the elderly. Then probably a home option. Probably a home nursing or home caregiver option is good for them enough. But unfortunately, for some circumstances, we do understand maybe financially or challenges and stuff. It's better to feel that they want someone to actually take care of their elderly ones 24/7, or at least close to 16, 20 hours, right? Then of course going to a nursing home or a host home is another option for them. And of course, lastly, definitely it's all about budget as well. Have to be frank as well, right? Budget also plays a very important part in terms of deciding which kind of options is best suited for you. Sometimes taking care of elderly could be it's a very challenging thing. Of course, we also want to have the best to do what's best and what's right for our loved ones in that case. So, but sometimes in terms of financial budgets and stuff, that it's also would be a challenge as well. So those are a couple of key things that definitely you need to look at in terms of picking out which are the suitable services, senior care services that is available for your elderly.
Right. I think that's a very thorough answer, actually. I just something that caught my attention was this: when we talk about budget, right? Since we say that there's a difference between old folks home as well as nursing homes, and where nursing homes are concerned, that's where the technical expertise would come in, right? So is it safe to say
Right.
that actually nursing homes would be somewhat a little bit more expensive as compared to old folks home services? Is that a right thing to say?
Well, it also slightly depends, but definitely on average would definitely be a bit more pricier than old folks home. As mentioned as well, right? One of the main key things is that all the nursing homes are mainly staffed with certified nurses, and trained professionals are of course would need a certain pricing to actually be able to sustain the business as well, and also to provide the best possible care for the elderly.
Right. So I think it all comes down to the individual perspective, not to say perspective, but the individual needs of the elderlies. As long as you understand their needs, then I think it would be easier for you to pinpoint what kind of service you would need. Now, moving on to the next one, because since you're the Chief Marketing Officer at the Jasper Lodge, I believe you do have quite a number of data. You deal with a lot of residents, maybe from a day-to-day basis. So, have you observed, so to say, a change in the elderly landscape? Are the residents getting younger, or are they actually getting older? Do we see some sort of a pattern from this?
Um, I would say as actually now Malaysia itself is actually in really very interesting times. I think Malaysia, surprisingly, based on the statistics, recent year statistics, that we are actually moving towards an elderly population by the year of 2030, which is very near. So in the 9 years time, we are actually in the elder kind of senior population.
Mm-hmm.
This was used to be a thought that Japan is just one of the ones that will be in the aging population, but actually Malaysia is also one of the really fast that we're going to achieve that. So what that means, right? What that means is that with we're much more elderly senior people that's going to come in Malaysia, and also the financial challenges that we have now. Currently, we actually have this generation is actually called a sandwich generation,
Right.
right? So basically, a lot of people are now having the challenges of whether they need to take care of the elderly and also their children themselves. So actually, that causes now actually it's starting to have much more influx inquiries in terms of seeking such a service in nursing homes cares as well. So that's what we are seeing actually recent years recently as well in terms of our inquiries. So for us, I think it's a good thing, but again, this is actually something that the Malaysian government has to look into as well, because as we got a lot more elderly seniors coming in, right? There are actually not enough nursing homes actually to go out to actually support such a big market.
Right. And I think apart from that, right, to zoom in a little bit further, what I've read is that I think Malaysia, we generally have a lack of awareness towards the elderly ecosystem. And I think a lot of people do not actually understand that our population is heading towards an elderly population, right? An aging population, like you mentioned in 2030. If I'm not mistaken, the stats tend to show that it's double the amount, if I'm not mistaken. And at the same time, I also agree that the Malaysian government should actually look into this, because if I'm not mistaken, there is a huge disparity and there is a huge lack when it comes to geriatric care. I think there are not enough geriatrics in Malaysia at the moment, but that is of another topic. Okay, we're gonna come back to what we have here for today. So as someone who is very actively involved in these institutions, by institutions, I mean the senior care ecosystem, I believe there are a lot of people who have stigma or misconceptions about this kind of institutions, be it nursing homes, old folks home, companion care, and things like that, right? So what are the common stigma that you find that people have towards these institutions?
So I think the major stigma that for now current generation view of the main stigma about nursing homes or elder care is it's somewhere whereby they had an image. It's probably coming from the old movies or stuff that it's a very sad place, right? It's a very sad kind of like a worse place to actually be for elderly, whereby they're just probably most of the residents there are being left by their family to actually fend from themselves or just kind of like pass their time as they go old. So actually that's not really the case, as I think these are just pretty much all kind of like perceptions of nursing homes and old folks homes. I think as time grows, as now as well, even for us as well, it's way much better now. Nursing homes now are actually pretty much, I would say it's much more comfortable sometimes for a lot of homes as well, because like for us, Jasper Lodge, right, we tend to make the place very nice, very beautiful, as comfortable as possible with air conditioning, with nice lightings, and also all sorts of things. So it's now nursing home itself, old folks home itself is now much more watched as a place that actually will be much more beneficial for elderly to go to, especially in old times, because as I mentioned, so one of the challenges now for elderly is that as children leave to work for financial and stuff, right? It's kind of even much more lonesome, sad actually for elderly to be staying at their own home, because now they have no people to talk to.
Mm.
Um, and if they have some medical condition and stuff, right, it will be hard for them to actually go out and socialize and stuff. That's actually even much more worse for them in terms of mentally as well.
Right, right.
So being at an old folk home and a nursing home will actually definitely help them in that aspect as well. Because again, sometimes old folks home and one of the misconception of old folks home and nursing home is that whenever you go to one, it's basically you have to stay there 24 hours every day forever for months and months or years and years. Actually, that's not the case as well. We do have some clients that come over kind of like a daycare, right? So it's pretty much like, sorry, quote unquote, like a kindergarten for elderly in a way. So whereby you'll be able to come here, to come to our place, to actually be kind of look after, be able to socialize happily with other elderlies
Right.
at our place. Actually does them well, that's them good as well mentally.
Correct. I think a lot has changed throughout the years, and I think a lot of people they are still stuck in the thinking where they actually paint these institutions in a very bad light. They still think that there's something that's negative. They associate it to abandonment, which I think is no longer the case, because I think through these institutions, these elderlies are actually able to get companion. They would feel less lonely, like you mentioned. And at the same time, maybe they have a better environment, a more elderly-friendly environment for them to age and things like that. So on this note, right, do you think the environment of a place actually affects old age living? Do you think that good environment will actually allow them to give them a better quality of life, to let them age more gracefully? Do you think that's an important factor when it comes to retiring or growing old?
Right. I mean, definitely. Definitely, environment plays a very important part as well. In having a better quality of life in terms of aging gracefully as well, right? For example, it's normal. It's something that's also happens to normal people. It doesn't only happen for seniors, right? For example, imagine if you were to stay in an environment that's dirty, that's untidy, that's horrible, smells bad and stuff, right? Of course, you won't feel the need. Of course, you will feel bad staying at that place, and probably at the end, it also affect you mentally as well, right? And vice versa. It's like if you are living at somewhere it's comfortable, it's nice, you will feel much more energetic and you feel that you're enjoying life, right? And you'll be able to actually uh, improve the quality of your life that way as well. Definitely, I think that's very important as well. Even for us, right, at Jasper Lodge, we try to have a very good environment whereby the lightings are good. We try to make the environment itself whereby it's happy and it's joyful, whereby our elders be able to enjoy it as well, enjoy the companionship with other elderlies as well at the center, so that and also be able to enjoy the facilities as well.
Right. Thank you very much. I think that is something that's very important, right? Because environment actually affects every single person. A good environment would equate to better old age living, so to say, to conclude that question. Now moving on to the next one. So when we talk about the elderlies, right, we understand that diet, safety, as well as hygiene are probably amongst the most pressing concerns for this group of people. So as Jasper Lodge, you have 14, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned 14 at the very beginning of the interview, 14 different outlets throughout the entire nation. Can you probably give us a run through of how Jasper Lodge actually manage these aspects when it comes to diet, safety, and hygiene at these institutions?
Right. So these are actually very important aspects, and also one of the main concerns of our founding director, which is Dr. Lim. I think he stresses out many times, and all this actually starts from the way beginning, right? It starts from starting to actually picking up the location for our branch itself. From there, from that early aspect, right? One of the few things we'll run through in determining whether a location or a building is actually safe or it's qualified to be our center is we actually look around the structure of the building and seeing what are the places that we definitely need to improve in terms of renovation and making it safe, very safe, compliant. And also one of the things that we've taken into measures as well is trying to make the safety standards of our centers to be as same par as whatever we have on the hospital level. So for example, right, the toilet doors, that we have in all our centers, we will definitely, even though some of our centers are actually residential bungalows, right? So what we do is we will re-renovate the toilet. We will re-renovate the toilet in the sense that we will actually take down the doors and make it the enough width to actually be able to push a wheelchair through and do a 360. That's pretty much hospital kind of standards in terms of the toilets. Of course, we actually installed safety bars all around handles, all around the toilets, also all around the centers that we have as well. So that actually makes it safe. And also we do have lift chairs and stuff that's attached to the stairs as well, to make it easier and more accessible for the elderlies that have mobility issues as well. The ramps have stuffs. From a diet's perspective as well, right? Our diets is very kind of like very detailed and designed, actually looked through by doctors as well on a monthly basis. Dr. Lim himself, our founder, actually took this up upon himself to actually review the menu for the diets for the patients every month. And we try to keep it interesting as well for our residents, where we don't kind of like make it mundane kind of diet. We actually change it up a lot. That's also one thing that our resident really likes about it. It's actually the meals that they get. Of course, the meals itself will then tend to also be very well balanced as well, and also be also suitable for certain patients that we have.
Right. I think one thing that you mentioned that I would like to highlight is that a lot of people don't understand that having an elderly at home, right? If you were to host an elderly at home, it also means that we need to make the environment elderly friendly. That means having ramps, maybe having those railings and things like that. And I think if the house is not able to accommodate this kind of renovation, so to say, and I think it would actually be a better option if the elderly has that need to actually send them to such institutions, because they're in better hands, right? They have professionals who will be taking care, they have places, they have things that could accommodate, as compared to, being at home and then being in an environment that is probably not elderly friendly. So now, if you were to see another perspective, which is, I think when it comes to in terms of staying active, we've seen a lot of articles about people saying that, elderlies, we need to keep active, we need to get them to, walk around, have daily activities. So is that also practiced in Jasper Lodge? If yes, how do you all do it? Can you share with us a little bit?
Right. Well, correct. You made a very good point. Actually, for elderlies, again, it's same thing like young people have. Same thing like young people, right? You definitely have to be active in terms of trying to make them do a little bit of work here and there as well. It's also contribute to the overall well-being themselves, even mentally as well, their mental health. So what we do is we of course tend to have some simple exercises, walk around the compounds to actually kind of get them moving the muscles, moving and working as well. And also sometimes for the more elderly that's actually having a bit of mobility problem, actually we also do weekly group kind of physiotherapy sessions whereby they be able to actually to work out some of the muscles that they have in different parts of their body. And definitely we also have activities, mentally stimulating activities such as puzzles, coloring as well, doing a little bit of playing chess and stuff like that. So just also get them active mentally as well, not just physically. And so sometimes we'll also do conversations, talk as well. This is also very important. I think a lot of people don't know, actually communication with elderly also is a very important part in terms of keeping them mentally alert and also health wise.
Right. Thank you very much for that. I think that's a very good answer. Now, I think we've run through quite a number of questions today, but before we end, I actually just have a very quick wrap-up question that I have in mind, is that since Jasper Lodge I think it grew exponentially across these years, now with 14 outlets all over Malaysia, what do you think is Jasper Lodge's key factor in, segregating oneself from the rest of the institutions? Is there any refined measures that are implemented at Jasper Lodge, maybe especially in this time of pandemic where, there are a lot of concerns going around the elderly ecosystem?
Right. I think one of the main things that separate us from the others is actually the detailed in terms and the caring heart that we have for all our staffs towards each and every residents at our centers. Again, to quote our founder, Dr.
Dr.
Lim, right?
Lim.
When he started this all, right, he actually made it a very important thing that they ask us and say, he wants to make a nursing home that you feel for us that you can be very safe to actually put our own parents into. So that's what makes us different. We actually tend to run our centers and make sure that they are actually up to the level that even we ourselves as staffs would be happy and gladly to put our to put our parents in it as well. So right, so with that being said, right, so a lot of things I have put in place in terms of details, from all the way from making sure, especially in this such hard times in COVID, right, we actually spend very stringent SOPs in terms of taking in new clients itself. So honestly, also help. It also kind of like what do you call it? It also kind of reduce our businesses by monthly basis as well, because now the strict SOP that we had is that we will, for every new admission that comes in, right, it has to go through the 14 days period
Quarantine.
of isolation, right, before actually putting them into a public contact with the other residents. These are very stringent SOPs that we made in our centers. So that means that every month itself, right, the maximum we can probably take in per center is probably maybe one and a half, 2 residents into it. So that's to safeguard whatever residents that are currently staying with us as well. And also we have constant swab tests that's been going around for our staffs that actually comes in whenever a staff comes in to work for the day, right? They'll actually go through the same swab test and make sure they don't have all the symptoms of COVID before we release them to actually be into the center itself to work. And also even the ones that came, if the staffs that decided to probably take a lift, kind of balik kampung, we actually when they come back also, we request them to actually do kind of like isolation for about 7 days to just make sure that they don't have any symptoms before actually then making that start to go to work. So these are very stringent measures that we have taken during this hard times to actually safeguard the health wellness of our residents and our centers.
Right. I think to sum that point, the two key takeaways I took from that answer is that number one is that the safety as well as hygiene, of the residents are not compromised in the face of business development. Despite having to do business, you also take very, very stringent SOPs that are in place to make sure that everyone is safe, right? The other one that you mentioned is about the detailed care that Jasper Lodge puts in through every single thing that you do, from dieting, like you mentioned about Dr. Lim, which is the founder, going through and reviewing the menu, make sure that it's not repetitive, not boring, not mundane, and things like that. I think this is the very important factor that sets you apart. Okay, Lauren, just before we end today's session, very quickly, I'm going to do a recap very shortly, but do you have any last words or maybe any important thing that you'd like to convey to any of our audiences who are watching?
I think one thing that definitely want to put out is that don't be afraid of nursing homes or old folks homes. I think it's actually a very nice place to put in to our elderly, to our loved ones into in times of need lah. So definitely again, the existence of us is actually to actually help people out there, young people out there who actually have challenges actually managing and taking care of their elderlies. Because honestly speaking, so especially for the ones that have much more severe medical cases, it's not easy to actually take care of elderlies with special medical conditions. We understand that, and that's why we are here to help you.
Right. Thank you very much, Lauren. I think just very quickly before we end the session, because we want to keep this we don't want to keep this too long. So the key takeaways are, I think the most important lessons that we've learned in this session is that the elderly ecosystem has certainly changed a lot throughout these years. And I think the last time people tend to see old folks home and nursing homes in a very bad light. And I think that's no longer the case, especially with with us, Malaysia, moving towards an aging population. I think there will be an increased demand, and there needs to be an increased attention of people towards this topic so people would know. right? And I think nowadays, like places like Jasper Lodge, they do actually offer very detailed, very professional services, which would actually be even better than us trying to take care of the elderly ourselves. Because to begin with, we're not professionals. Second, we don't have the expertise. Third, we probably don't have the facilities. We don't have the competency to take care. And I think that is what draws us laymen apart from these professional institutions, because they are able to deliver and they're able to do that. And I think at the very beginning, Laurent also mentioned about how there has been a trend. Maybe there's co-living, and I think I've only heard about co-working. Co-working is something that has been in trend for a few years, and I think co-living for elderlies, retirement village are very important points that maybe we could emulate, because I think these are things that have started back in Japan. I think that is also something with Malaysia's aging population. I believe it is imminent someday, somehow. It is something that we can go towards. So that is all that I have for today. And I thank you, Laurent from Jasper Lodge, for joining us today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.